Thank you for coming out to this community workshop for the Citirina project. We do have, as I said before, Spanish interpretation, so if you need headphones, please come over to the table and pick those up. Who am I? Why am I talking? My name is Jeff Pengelly. I serve as the Community Development Director for the City of Oxnard. I've been with the city for 26 years, all in community development. I'm joined by our Planning Manager, Joe Pearson, our Project Planner and Planning Supervisor, Jamie Peltier, and the project developer, Carl Steinberg, representing Warmington Homes. We also have, I noticed at the last meeting, there was some questions that drifted into maybe some code compliance questions and general neighborhood issues, and we brought Code Inspector Tony Ochoa here to be able to answer any questions near the end as well. The purpose of the community meeting, again, is to present the project information and to hear your feedback. This is the first in-person neighborhood meeting we've had in 6 years. The last go-around at the park and the bleachers was not our first choice. That was a backup plan. Apologize for that. We had to decide whether to cancel the meeting or try to make the best of it. We heard your feedback that that was not a good location. It was cold that night and we didn't have microphones. So my apologies. This is to make up for that. And so we want to get the message out. We want to hear your input. Just for context, again, setting it up, this community workshop, this is a privately owned parcel, and this is a privately funded development project. To clarify, the city is not investing any city funds into this project. Any property owner can submit an application to the city, and we're obligated to process it. The city's role is to be a neutral third party to make sure the application and the design in its early stages meets the city requirements, at least in terms of the early stages. I say that because there are many opportunities still to come, aside from tonight's community workshop where public input will be welcome. They will be releasing in the near future an environmental document that will go out for public comment. There will be ultimately a planning commission hearing. We'll talk a little bit, maybe Carl can talk a little bit about his rough timelines for that. And then ultimately, the decision maker on this project is the Oxnard City Council. Please put your name down on the interested parties list if you have not already done so you can be notified through email of all these upcoming events, and check our website as well. But if you put your name down, you will be notified directly. Again, city staff's role is to facilitate this meeting. We want to make sure you are free to express your opinion. Tonight's meeting is focused on this project. If you have other comments and commentary to make, that's your prerogative. We're not here to filter you or silence you. However, we do want to keep it focused on this project as much as we can, and we want to ensure that all of you have the ability to speak. So we are collecting speaker cards so we can get the batting order correct, and we're going to ask each speaker to maintain 3 minutes. I'll run a timer. That way we can get through the most people possible. We have 2 hours scheduled for this meeting, so there should be plenty of time. The presentation itself, the PowerPoint, should only take about 10 or 15 minutes. There's going to be plenty of time for questions, comments, and discussion. With that, let's get started with the presentation.
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm Jamie Peltier, the supervising planner. I'm also the project manager. Some overview of the community workshop. Jeff kind of covered some of it already, but please provide your questions and comments. Joe here will collect any of your speaker cards. And then I'm going to go through the basics of planning, kind of a planning 101. Some basics about the project, and then I will open it up to Carl, and Carl will present the project details. And after that, we'll open it up to public comment. So, Planning 101. This is a very, very basic overview of how projects are submitted to the city. So, when a developer wants to propose a project, the city is obligated to take in a complete application based on a checklist that the city holds and provides to developers. On that checklist are a variety of items such as plans, applications, letter of authorization from the property owner, etc. And they pay fees. So once that application is submitted, the city is required to then begin the review process. The details of the project are not proposed by the city, as Jeff mentioned. This is proposed by the developer, and the city reviews what they propose. The review is then based on the goals, policies, ordinances, and laws in place at the time of the application. The city has a general plan that is a typical roadmap for about a 20 to 30-year period of what the city anticipates for growth. So we look at the general plan as our guide map when projects are submitted. And the review then, what goes into the review are a variety of things, which I'll get to on the next slide, but the impacts from a project then are reviewed by city staff. And then we provide alternatives and mitigations as necessary to the project details, so there are less impacts to the neighborhood. One key note though, when projects are submitted, yes, when there are impacts, we ask them to fix certain elements within the public right-of-way, within the city itself. But we can't fix everything. There are a lot of things that are out of our control and a lot of things that are out of the scope that we at the city then cannot request the developer to address all of the concerns within a neighborhood area. All that to say though, public input is always provided, and I hope and encourage everyone. I think I've gotten quite a few emails from people, and I appreciate everyone who's provided those emails to me. None of that isn't overlooked. We take that into consideration, and I also provide that to the developer as well. So what goes into a project review? Applications are reviewed not just by planning, but all of the city departments. So you have the fire department, you have building and engineering who reviews the civil plans, you have public works with stormwater, wastewater, traffic, along with environmental services for your trash and utilities. So all of the city reviewers take a look at these projects when they come through. We're looking at zoning, state laws, general plan, neighborhood context, the community input that's provided, engineering for grading, drainage, and just general requirements for civil plans, circulation and access, and outdoor areas to make sure that there's enough open space per our city code. A lot of this stuff is written in our city code, and we are in there in the project reviewing all of the applications to the requirements that are already written in our city code. So here's a basic process for this project in particular. Staff will review and compile all of the technical analysis. Everything from what the Oxnard City Code requires, to the general plan, to the environmental document, that is under staff's review. We then make a recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission then makes a recommendation based on the findings of staff's recommendation, and then they provide that recommendation to City Council. So that's just the really basic overview of how the process works. We can get to the item now. This is the only item tonight. Typically in community workshops, we have multiple items. Tonight we have the 245 East Colonia. It is a plan development permit, a general plan amendment, zone change, tentative map, and a density bonus application. So right now, I don't know if you can see, in green, this is where we are with the project. The application has been submitted. We are in the review process. We are here at the community workshop, and the environmental review per the California Environmental Quality Act also began, and that is in the very beginning stage. So through these first 3 steps is where public input is accepted and welcomed. After that, Planning Commission is scheduled, like I said, for a recommendation, and then it is scheduled for City Council. Here's the project description. Carl will go into the details, but the basics of the project is 121 residential for sale attached townhomes with the associated on-site open space and parking. This includes a general plan amendment. So right now, the land use is industrial, and the project proposes to change it to residential. The density bonus request, per state law, allows them to ask for additional units, which they have asked for 3 additional units on top of the base density that the city allows. And CEQA will also be in. This is the general location off of Oxnard Boulevard next to the railroad on Colonia Road. Here is a close-up of the site. Again, a vacant parcel since the former Sunkist burned down. Here is our general plan and zoning map. So, as I mentioned, the general plan right now is industrial limited, and the zoning is limited manufacturing. And proposed, we have residential medium and garden apartment plan development, which essentially is a medium density with a plan development permit. Some surrounding uses. So part of what I had mentioned in the previous slide, what we look at is context of the site. The context of this site, the area formerly used to be industrial, so the site is industrial along with pieces that are still left that are industrial. However, the entire area is surrounded by residential. You have some commercial across Oxnard Boulevard, but for the most part, there's a lot of residential surrounding this property. So the current land use being industrial would allow certain uses that are industrial. These are within our Oxnard City Code. That would be allowed, permitted. If they put a building, any of these uses would be allowed to occupy the building. So that would mean from distribution warehouses to any type of workshop. The construction of a new building still requires a public hearing. They don't necessarily have to provide a specific use other than a general industrial use. And then once a building is approved, a use then can occupy the building. Here's the site plan. Carl will go into details about it, but again, just the attached townhomes in blocks of 5 to 7 surrounding along the street, into the street. And some more context in terms of public improvements. There is an existing multi-use path just north of the site. You can see it along the specific plan area just north of this property in the garden. So the multi-use path is a planned bike path that the city has a bike master plan to connect certain areas through whether a multi-use path or just a bike path. So that yellow area is the bike path proposed. It goes through part of the community garden. That area at the end of the community garden is general open space right now, but is used for certain events and other space for the community garden people to utilize. And then at closer to the property, there is one garden plot proposed It's currently under construction. The city got a grant to extend the community garden plots. So I think everyone, if you've seen the area, they are currently under construction. Okay, so on the other side, there is a hammerhead turnaround. And essentially that just means there's a sharp hammerhead. And that area is proposed to be mulch. And there are 2 trees currently there. And the reason for that is the Community Soul Alley is a small street. It's pretty narrow, so if you go down that street, you most likely will get stuck or have to reverse out. So the purpose of the hammerhead is to provide an outlet to turn around safely. And next to that, we have the parking spaces that are proposed along the city right-of-way. Right now, it's just dirt. So they're proposing to incorporate parallel parking spaces. So we have a free 28-foot wide street, and there's no parking that would interrupt that 28 feet. So those are the public improvements that are part of the project right now. Here are some images from that I took I think a couple months ago. So the first image is at the community garden from the existing multi-use path, and the proposed bike path would cut right through there, down south to the proposed project site. And the image next to it is where the hammerhead turnaround would be, where the 2 trees are. And again, it's under construction, so there's no mulch area right now, but it's proposed in the future. That's it for city staff. We can open it up to questions when we do the speaker cards. For now, though, I'm going to pass it off to Carl, who will give more project details.
Good evening, I'm Carl Steinberg. I'm working with Warmington Residential, the developer proposing this residential community. I'll go through the basic information of the project, and then we'll open it up to all of your questions. The project, as Jamie explained, runs Colonia, and there's 2 kinds of buildings that we're proposing. Actually, it's one building. It's either 5, 6, or 7 units. So all the buildings on the site are in 5, 6, or 7 units. But fronting Colonia is just 2 buildings. Our main entry would be to the right opposite A's, which is right here. The bike path is right there on the westerly side of the property. The buildings are 3 stories. They range between 35 to a max of 38 feet high. All the units are energy efficient, modern interior plans. They're designed for families. They're 3 and 4 bedrooms. They range from 1,300 to a little over 1,900 square feet. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Can I get the next slide, please? So the site plan Jamie talked about earlier is a 6.5-acre property right here adjacent to the Warmington neighborhood. Hayes is the first street to the east, and then to the west is the Edison easement and the railroad track and then Oxnard Boulevard. Surrounding it to the north is residential, the single-family communities that were built 20 years ago, the older communities to the east, and then the communities to the south with the commercial, various kinds of commercial along Colonia Road. This is a residential setting that we're proposing to fit in with the existing community in terms of the use, the single-family ownership use. It's similar to what's to the north, above the community garden. The density that we're proposing is 18 units to the acre. That would be the city's R3 density. Density in Colonia ranges from 6 to 9 units an acre, and if people build an ADU or build a second home in that particular lot, then it's 12 to 18 units an acre. So there are some similarities. We have open space throughout the property. We have a central walkway that's landscaped with courtyards and play areas for kids, located in an area here, an area there. a full recreation play area for tots, barbecue area. We have an area for people to bring their dog, a little dog park. Every home has its own two-car garage. I think that's important to take into account. There's a lot of concern that I understand people have about people having too many cars and parking in the Colonia community. We tend not to see that in all of our townhome communities that we've built in other areas. Other developers have built the same kind of community, and people who move in here tend to just have two cars. It's usually a single or a young couple, and they want to live in the area because they work in the area. They don't want to commute far and wide. Nobody does really, but this allows people to be here. Some people will probably come. The majority of the buyers will be within a 5-mile radius. That tends to be the normal purchase of a typical buyer in a townhome community. The northerly homes, at least 3 buildings, they face the new community garden plots that are being planned and under development and construction right now. Access to the project, as we discussed, is here on Colonia on the easterly side. A's is intersected right here, and that's the primary ingress in and out for the project. Secondary emergency access, and emergency entrance is here at Camino, and I'll get into a second about the ideas of improving this connection for Camino. There is a gate here and a gate there. The bike path along the westerly side is separated from the project, and it's to connect to the city's master plan for bicycle use, which picks up again on the north side of the garden as it goes north along the existing community to the north. We have the next slide. So this is a kind of blow-up from the city's plan that went to Caltrans. And it showed, we superimposed over the proposed existing uses. And what we're proposing to do is take about 1,000 feet of the proposed garden area, which shows as mulch on the plan that went to Caltrans, and 1,200, almost 1,500 feet from our area, and build an entryway which is fire department compatible. Right now, the street width, curb to curb, of Camino is 28 feet. But when a car parks in here, as shown here, it eats up approximately 8 feet. So the travel path is 20 feet, which makes it qualified as an alley, as Jamie pointed out earlier. And the fire department has no way to turn around if they come in here. One of the complaints that a couple of people brought to our attention was during the fire when the old facility on the site broke down, people couldn't get out, fire equipment couldn't get in. It has to do with the narrowness of the road here of the property. And so if just this area here were used as an entryway, if this whole hammerhead were pulled down into the property, and only this 14 feet here were used as an entryway, the fire department wouldn't allow it. They want more than 14 feet to enter into a new development. And so, in discussion with fire and city, we came up with a proposal for this hammerhead, which allows easy access in and out. It's open, it's public. And we also suggested that the parkway, which is predominantly dirt with some street trees in it, be used to park cars. So this yellow area would allow cars that are currently parked on the north side of Camino to go in and park similarly in this yellow area. They would park the same that they park now. And so this improvement of Camino, so that it would actually be 28 feet wide and satisfy the fire department, go all the way back to Garfield. New sidewalks would be put in, new street trees would be put in. We'd improve the sidewalk on the south side also. So one aspect of a benefit that people have questioned us about is how our kids can walk to school who would be in here well, they'd have a safer sidewalk because it would be widened on both sides to the ADA compliance. Right now, it's not. And so that would be a benefit. Let's have the next slide, please. So here's a little more detail of the building. It's a 3-story, modern, contemporary, or Spanish. We're showing the more Spanish. This is contemporary right now. And the colors are pretty much earth tone on this design. Every unit has either a patio or its own balcony. Every unit has a balcony. All the 4-bedroom units get their own front patio. All the 3-bedroom units have a balcony. 3-bedroom units are at the end of some of the 7-unit buildings. So on the 7-unit buildings are either 7 townhomes in a row or 5 townhomes in a row with 2 3-unit buildings on one end. And every unit has its own 2-car garage, as I said before. Front yards, people can walk along the internal walkways, their front yards, for their own personal use, their own barbecue use, play use for their kids. They can do their own potting gardening there, make their own decorative essentials for their own front yard. Can we have the next slide? And this is a little more classic Spanish-looking design. It's similar to the other building. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, this is a 5-unit building. So they're all pretty much the same concept.
Sorry, I just wanted to take a chance. I know people over there by the door maybe can't see, so there are extra seats over here if people want to fill in, just so that you can see the presentation a little bit better.
Access to the parking is in the drives between buildings. So can we go back to the site plan for a second? Thanks. So you enter the property and there's these drives. You go to these drives and then access your parking, your own garage. And then between buildings are the walkways. So there's a walkway for every building set. So people can leave their building, their unit, walk to someone else's home or the play area. It's not an area that it entices the use of the walkways for the parents, for the kids, and so it creates a safe environment for the kids living here. Let's go forward, please. More. So these are the typical unit plans. You come in through the garage, you have an access either through the garage, there's also front door access through the private patios and the walkways along the edge of each building. And you come in, there'll be one bedroom downstairs, typically about a half bath area. You go upstairs to the family area, the living area, and the kitchen. Next slide, please. So this is the last slide, and it shows the 3rd floor, the living areas, the bedroom areas. Somebody in the city wanted to see where all the laundry rooms were, so we squared them on this plan. So the laundry is on the 3rd floor, every unit has its own laundry facility. We'll go back to the second. Some of the people wanted to know the distance from their property to each of the units. I can't tell you how far it is to windows along the back, because we don't have information on that, but I can tell you that every home along here, the rear wall, is between 60 and 125 feet. If you're over here, it's 125 feet. If you're up here, it's 60. But the average along this line, from the unit face on the property to the building property wall that people have here, is about 70 to 75 feet. It's a little bit more separation than you have next door between typical homes on the way these lots are built. Project, the city will be calculating the impact fees, the beneficial fees that will pay the city. We're estimating approximately $5 million in fees. The fees are park and rec fees, school fees, traffic mitigation fees, if there are any mitigation, or just trip fees as calculated. The park and rec fees are going to be close to $1 million. These are fees you can request city council to be spent in your community. The school fees will be spent in your community. So there's a lot of financial benefit the project brings. It'll help to offset any crossing guard issues, sidewalks, crosswalks for improving walking to school. In terms of traffic, the traffic study, which can be reviewed at the city, it indicates that we will not increase the level of service at the intersections, and I do understand in the AM and PM main rushes that Colonia gets pretty busy. The exiting along into Camino, and the secondary exiting Camino gets improved by building out the extra 8 feet that we talked about, and that'll allow exiting to go there. We can have cross guards in the morning and the late afternoon at Garfield. We're improving Colonia itself. We'll improve the street frontage, the street itself, the sidewalk, the parkway. Right now, the parkway and the sidewalk are not ADA compliant. We'll make sure of that, and we'll improve it back to whatever the city requires, whether that's just our frontage or Garfield. So I would say there's a significant amount of benefits that the project does have, and there is a lot of concern to the community that the project does present. And I think that's where I'd like to open it up to those questions, because you're all pretty much here to tell me that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Carlos. We'd like to get to the questions and the speaker cards, so I'll take them in order. There is a microphone down here. Sorry, we couldn't put it single mass with everybody here. But I'll call up Teresa Gonzalez. My glasses on.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Teresa Gonzalez. I'm the chair for the Colonia Neighborhood Council and also a resident of the Colonia. We're here to gather as residents, as myself, to hear the proposal of the building of townhomes. We thank you for coming here tonight. But we must face reality. Our city and our community here in the Colonia, the development will be more of an infrastructure due to the fact that we are swamped as it is with too many cars. Gridlock and traffic. Our streets are already consumed with a lot of cars. Parking shortages, we can never find parking. We're also looking at the safety of our children. It is nice to bring in a townhouse, but you gotta take into consideration that you're gonna be building, you're gonna be gone, but we're the ones that are gonna be living here, going through the turmoil of heavy traffic, children that are crossing to go to the school, also infrastructure strain. Keep in mind are your local drains, the sewage, the utility systems, public service. Also that of our garden, the garden that is that for our senior citizens that bring them back to life as senior citizens. We are here tonight to listen to you, but I, as a resident, am telling you, we expect this to be a transparent and calm decision, but take into fact that we that live here in the Colonia, as myself, do not want a townhouse. My Colonia is not for sale.
Thank you, Teresa. Next up is Carla Alejandro. Carla? Delicious.
In 2013, the demolition of Las Cortes happened in La Colonia. This was a project approved in 2008, sold as the redevelopment of a deteriorating public housing project. Larry White from Oxnard Housing Authority then propagated the lie that the vast majority of residents were excited about getting into new units. This was a lie. Most tenants fought being displaced from their homes until they were forcibly removed. The city lied and said existing tenants would have priority in moving into the new units, but they were not giving any priority. Bill Wilkins, the then Oxnard Housing Director, stated that Las Cortes was an outdated asset that swallows precious Southern California real estate, saying it was a gold mine. It tells you what the city's priorities are: money. In September 1994, an $11 million program was slated to start for the renovation of the city's 530 family public housing. It began with Felicia Court in La Colonia. Residents were displaced, with some being told they could not return after renovations. Two examples that show how this city lies to residents, consistently telling us that renovations or new developments are needed, but they use that to forcibly displace people from their neighborhoods. Carl Steinberg was previously a project manager for a housing project in Santa Paula in 2016 that was greatly opposed. The city approved the homes, and they are now able to sell at nearly $900,000. He is no stranger to pushing developments that no local residents want, and which create bigger divides in communities that historically could not afford to continue living in their cities. But maybe the only spot that Carl Steinberg has no opposition might be 714 North Sweetser Avenue in Los Angeles, where he was a manager for a project next to Melrose in West Hollywood, or with the ETCO homes that are based in Beverly Hills, because of course white, affluent, rich people are not going to have problems with new development. If you take a look at Warmington Residential, which he is also affiliated with, the website, it's all white people in the photos. That shows you the priority. That shows who you are selling these homes to. Median housing cost for Oxnard is about $750,000. We can't afford to live here. Some of us never could. This project will further displace the community, but it will be profitable to the city, even though the city wants to say that it is not investing in any city funds, but they told us they're getting $5 million fees. So you don't get to wash your hands from this.
Thank you for your feedback. The only clarification I want to make is the $5 million impact fees are segregated. They are separated from city funds. We have to report on those to the state every year. We cannot commingle their funds. They're dedicated to CIP projects for this specific infrastructure, parks, traffic, etc. So just wanted to clarify that. The developer is paying their freight, yes. Christian Munoz.
I want to start off by acknowledging all the people who showed up today. Each and every one, amidst the weight of the ICE terror that burdens each and every one of us in this community. I see mothers, I see fathers, I see brothers and sisters. Some of us having to take on more than one job just to pay rent, or having to host a get miss or fundraisers to help our loved ones directly affected by this terror to make ends meet. Like many of us people sitting here today with me, my identity is rooted in La Colonia. It's the place my parents met. It's the place I celebrate holidays at my grandma's house. Now, Mr. Steinberg, I'm sure you aren't new to the term displacement. And I'm sure you've had your fair share of displaced communities all throughout Southern California. But La Colonia isn't Beverly Hills. It's not West Hollywood. People sitting here today aren't concerned with access to homes, but access to the home. We aren't asking for luxury homes, but affordable homes. We've seen displacement take place all throughout Southern California, throughout the decades of our people setting roots in cities like Oxnard, and cities like Los Angeles and San Diego. And while history might not exactly repeat, it often rhymes. We know it's projects like these that not only pose an immediate threat or harm to our kids today, but it jumpstarts gentrification, a phrase we know all too well. seen many studies consisting of city planning and wild claims of improving La Colonia. But that takes no consideration of our local businesses. That takes no consideration of people that already call La Colonia home. I want to leave you all with this. No solo tenemos casas o apartamentos, tenemos hogares. Las vidas que existen entre estas paredes no se pueden comprar. Nuestra cultura no se puede vender. La colonia no está en venta.
Thank you, Christian. Next up is Marisol Ramirez. Marisol Ramirez.
I am Marisol. Crecí en Fillmore y ahorita vivo en Camarillo, pero Oxnard siempre ha sido una ciudad importante para mí y mi familia. Cuando mi mamá llegó a este país, cuando era niña, su familia venía a Oxnard por la comunidad y la cultura que los inmigrantes de México crearon. Oxnard was built by immigrants and Latinos. It's a shame that the city either doesn't have the power or the desire to protect both of those communities from ICE or from gentrification. Ya sabemos que este proyecto es un paso en el proceso de desplazamiento y gentrificación porque está pasando en todo el condado y en todo el país. We already know that this is the first step to gentrification. We have seen it happen throughout this very same county. Like someone mentioned before me, Santa Paula, I know it's happening in Fillmore and it's happening across the nation. So, si este proyecto continúa, el pueblo va a seguir luchando por mantener nuestra comunidad y a desarrollarlo en la manera que nosotros queremos. If this project continues, we will continue to fight back against it. You have already heard that we do not want this project here. We do not want our community overtaken by something that does not belong here. And some of us were raised with manners, and that means that if you were not invited into a home, you are considered a thief and an intruder. So keep that in mind, Mr. Weiber.
Thank you, Marisol. Just a first name, Josue. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing.
Good afternoon. My name is Josue. I've been a resident of La Colonia for the last 20 years. And I've spoken on this matter twice already, earlier in the year when it was first presented to the Oxnard City Council, and last month at the community garden. Although I didn't prepare to speak tonight, I'm here tonight so I can be clear of how many people are against this death toll project. When concerns of traffic down Colonia Road were brought up, then their immediate solution is to take away a piece of a community garden to create an entrance to a gated community nobody is asking for. What the neighborhood is actually asking for is a stop to this displacement project and a stop to gentrification. Councilmember Starr, I saw you in the audience. I hope it's just as clear to you that it's not only a few people that don't want it. It is clear that what your constituents are demanding. A reminder that there is also an ongoing petition for your recall. From what we can all hear, there are no comments of support for this displacement project. Again, let it be on record that the community is not supporting this.
Thank you for that. Next up, Jesus Luna.
My name is Jesus Luna. I have been a resident in South Oxnard for 26 years. I just want to make it clear again that we do not want this project happening. This is gentrification. We do not want this.
Josiah Solorzano, forgive me, the last...
No one else is going to say tonight, or hasn't already said, but like you're hearing, we don't want this. It's gentrification. We know what your intentions are here. Profit, profit, profit. We don't want another old white man here trying to take our land, take our space, take our community, and our opportunities just because you want profit. We don't want that. Listen clear, hear us loud. We don't want it.
Tony is now Paripa.
Good evening, everybody. Listen, one of the proposed, that you made, man, it says, proposed project is not required to fix all existing areas concerned in the neighborhood. There's a saying that says, if you cannot fix it, don't touch it. I say it because according to the buildings, you're gonna build 121 housing. You multiply that times two, just simply that, you're gonna have 242 more cars in that area. You multiply it times three, you're gonna have 363 more cars. My parents, my brother-in-law, and my sister, we live on Hayes, North Hayes. There used to be Hayes towards the fields. That's no longer that. So you multiply that times four, we're gonna have 484 more cars driving through there. Earlier, one of you guys mentioned, when there's football games or right after school, every day on school years, you got Pacifica High School, you got Frank's Middle School coming out to there. You cannot imagine. Mr. Weinberg, you said something about the city is aware that Colonia Road in that area, and you turn on Hayes onto Oxnard Boulevard, I think you said it's not quite in the size that it should be. That you're gonna look into it to maybe widen it. So that tells you the problem that there is already. There's a problem there. There are too many cars going through there. And to add, like I said, 484 more cars, or 242 more cars, that is just not what. So I think that this development will negatively impact and definitely impact all the adjacent streets, all around the area. Hayes, Grand, Harfield, and definitely Colonia Road. So come on, please take that into consideration, okay? One last point. Why didn't you make the exit towards Oxnard Boulevard? Why not make the exit towards Oxnard Boulevard? Not into Colonia. Have the entrance come to Oxnard Boulevard and make the exit go out to Colonia Boulevard. I'm sorry, Oxnard Boulevard. I apologize. Why cannot you make? I was looking at the law regarding the trains. All we need is at least 30 to 50 feet wide on each side. You can make bridges, you can make entrances, exits out towards the Oxnard Boulevard. That would be maybe a suggestion you guys can consider. Thank you.
And just to clarify, we'll get through all this, the speaker cards. But if you have a succinct question, we may pause to ask the developer or city staff to answer that question. But we're writing them down, and we'll have some follow-up at the end as well for the distinct questions that are there. So we're hearing you. Robert Minards, forgive me for the last name.
Thank you. My name is Robert Minardes. I am a resident here in Oxnard, and just like everyone else here, I call this my home. So what I see here is 121 reasons to raise the rent. That's all this is. These aren't townhomes for the community. It's just increased rent. This weekend, we spent some time speaking to tons of people in the community. The mothers, the shop owners, all the fruteros at the corner, all have the same question. Who is this even for? Seriously, who is this for? It's not for anybody here. No one can afford these homes. Okay? Nobody. When this kind of thing is built here, all the rent goes up, the property tax goes up. The stores have to raise the rent. Everyone has to charge more money for everything. And then what happens? Everyone displaced. Jamie, in your emails to me, you said that there is no plan for displacement because it's a vacant lot. But what is this? If it's not displacement, and people getting kicked out of their neighborhood that they've been at for 30 years isn't displacement, I don't know what the word even means at this point. Okay? So if this doesn't serve our community, it doesn't employ our workers here, you also said that there is no plans for local hiring for this project. None. I don't know what your trackers call, but it seems like you bring your outside people in to build these projects here in these communities, hire nobody, which I don't know if this is true or not, but you said, Damon, that there's no plans for that. So if it's not serving our community, it's not giving us jobs, the homes are for people in this community, who is this actually for? Please, I think everyone here wants to know who's it for. Thank you.
Hi, I'd like to at least stand answer part of that last question. We tend to always try and hire locally. We'll make a commitment to that. We put that into our agreements with the city. We try and hire trades locally, all of our subcontractors locally. We don't bring people in because we want to. We bring them. Pardon? Well, answering his question about labor, his question related to hiring, and as a practice, we always try and hire locally. The city has no laws mandating it, but we can make a firm commitment to do that.
But he also asked for these laws before. You can't ask about it. None of us here can afford them.
Well,
Thank you. Let's, I'm just trying to answer one question. Let's make sure we get through all the speaker cards. There'll be plenty of time for you to follow up with that. Christina Ortiz? Okay, in case she stepped out for a minute, I'll hold that card on the side. Joe, you can keep that face up. We'll give her a call again in a moment. Elena, and having a little trouble with the last name. It starts with a C and ends in a CH. Kavich? Elena? Is there an Elena? Okay, we'll come back to that name. Maria Juarez. Diego Magana?
So I have to say that I'm super impressed that you're building homes that no one in this poor community can afford, and you're claiming that it's for the benefit of the community. You're closing off this community with a gate, with a fence all around, and you're claiming that it's for the betterment of the community. I know so many people here in this community and in other, all across Oxnard, who are just trying to get by, and there's eight families huddled in one home. Is this for them? Are they going to be able to move into these? No. So propose all you want this project, but please stop lying and saying that you're doing it for the betterment of the community, because you're not. You're doing it to make a profit. So just be honest about that. And to the people of Colonia, I got to say that the solution for the housing crisis is not in people like Mr. Steinbeck. It's in you getting together and uniting community ownership, those kinds of principles. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Sylvia Valenzuela?
Hello, my name is Sylvia Valenzuela. I've been a resident of Colonia my entire life. My family has resided in Colonia since the early 1900s. So a lot of roots here. I took down a lot of questions and stuff, but I'm seeing two sides to it. Number one, it's not really even this development. It's any development. Because if it's not this development, it's going to be a different development. So everyone needs to take that into consideration. And even if the properties were for sale for, let's say, $400,000, that's still a problem with the impact to traffic, infrastructure, safety. So there's two folds to it. Number one, maybe housing isn't what we need in that particular corner. And just to bring to light to all of you that haven't come to these meetings, do you know that there are 3 developments going on or proposed in the Colonia area? You have the projects, which is almost 400 dwellings. You have this one that is 121, and you have another one off of Cooper next to the secondhand store, 5 lots that you're looking at under 200. So, number one, when we were talking about 2 cars per house, I saw a lot of people shaking their head because we know that in a house, there's never 2 cars. Can I just see a raise of hands of those that believe there's like 2 cars per house? How about 3? How about 4? How about 5? 6? Okay, now multiply, let's say 4. Let's just say 4. 4 times 7, that's 2,800 cars added to the Colonia area. What happens when a loved one needs emergency services? How are they going to get down Colonial Road where there's cars on both sides, traffic coming and going? How many lights do you think it's going to take to turn into Colonia, especially after a train has been going back and forth, back and forth? So, I would say, as a community, we need to start expecting from our city new improvements to our area, such as a bridge, such as an improvement to 3rd Street Bridge. Now, I don't know who is doing your research on traffic, okay, we haven't even talked about schools. What is the current class size in each type of school? And what is your study showing that will be the impact to the class sizes in the schools with these many developments? What does that do to the education of your children? So maybe another thought for these lots might be to bring in businesses that are Hispanic owned or ethnically owned that will bring jobs to the area. How about a grocery store? A lot of people in this area walk, they don't drive.
20 seconds, please.
So, I would say to the people of the community, you need to think past this development because it'll be something else. And it's a problem. So I am against it, but not this development, just any development. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Brian James is up next. Brian James. Come on down.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian James Garcia. Although I am not originally from this area, okay, evident, right looking at me, I do live in the Colonia neighborhood. I have lived here for about 12 years now. I have noticed at the time I lived here, there's a lot of people who tell you a lot of negative things about that Colonia, which I guess the stigma sticks around. However, I have known that gentrification is not the answer to our problems. If you bring in something, we're expecting something in return. If you're going to destroy our community garden, we're expecting you to provide something in return. The schools, you're talking about it will be safer for the kids who live in this community. What about the kids who live in La Colonia currently? Are you only talking about the kids who are going to be safe behind the gate? Or are you talking about the community in general? The other factor is traffic. If you come down here on a holiday, which I know you won't, you will go to the church and you could not get out for about 30 to 45 minutes. And that's just not including weekends when the church is actively going on. Plus a train comes down and you're having to wait probably about 15 plus minutes to be able to move. The other issue is that you're proposing these houses in this site, but conveniently the building that was there burned down, so now we're at this place where we're asking for houses to be built in its place. Is there any plans to allow people to purchase these homes as low-income housing? And if so, how many units would be set aside for that? Additionally, I don't believe this is the best use of this land for La Colonia. And I do know that in addition to this site, for gentrification, there is going to be a redevelopment of the public housing in this area too. Please come to that meeting on Thursday in this gymnasium. And I would say that even though you're not from this area, or I don't believe you're from this area, I wouldn't want someone to come into our community just to gentrify it or to bring about a profitable change which is going to benefit you and only you. You talk about having people, trade workers, who will be locally sourced. Do you have any statistics or any, you can back that up with data sets to provide to us that you actually have in turn hired these people to participate in the construction of these homes? And I would just like to say that the overall project, I don't believe through the voices you're hearing here tonight, is beneficial to this community at large. And I would say to all the residents who have turned out that if you're not happy with what the city is proposing, then please feel totally empowered to run for city council, because they're the ones who are making these decisions. And if they're the ones who are making these decisions and are saying, we are still going to go against, we're still going to build this, even though everybody's saying no, please feel free to run for city council. And anybody who in city council votes for this, we can definitely vote them out. Thank you.
Brian, one quick, easy answer to one small question you had there. It's 12 units, 10%. 10% is the affordability requirement, and they're proposing 12.
Well, not even before, just the minimum.
Katie Jones, please. Katie Jones. Is there a Katie Jones here? Not seeing anybody. Katie Jones? Sarah?
Look, we all know the housing that they're proposing is for the investors and people who look like me. So, I have a couple questions. Will there be an HOA? What will be the average price of the housing here? And how much will community feedback go to the planning commission and to city council? And by the way, in addition to running for city council, you can also apply to be on the planning commission. Thank you.
Sarah, can you clarify that third question? It was, will there be an HOA, the price of a home, and what was the third one?
How much will the community feedback go into the decision of the planning commission and the city council?
The third part was how much will community feedback go into the planning commission and council decision making?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sarah, correct? Thank you for that. Yes, there is going to be an HOA. It will be managed by a professional company. They'll take care of the operation, the landscape, the basic cleaning, trash, things like that. So it won't be a nice demo. It will be a very clean operation. The homes, the market rate homes, will sell at market, which is currently $800,000-900,000. Yes, it's higher than what most people believe, is affordable. In the last year, there's been sales in the $700,000 range in Colonia, and I can get you that list if you want to see it. The low-income homes, the 12 low-income affordable homes. Those homes, they're going to go between 20, 330, 340, depending on family size and their exact income. They go out at a rate which the local housing department actually calculates sale price. We don't determine that. The applicants will be working with the city and ourselves in getting those sold and the families into those homes. The city requires 10% of the homes to be low income, and so that's what we're building towards.
I will just point out, as an engineer, that I can't support an $800,000-900,000.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for that follow-up, Carl. The next speaker up is Angel Garcia.
Hello, good evening. My name is Angel Garcia. I just want to let you know that I'm speaking on my own behalf as a private resident. I'm a resident of West Village, but I grew up in La Colonia, and I just want to give kudos to staff for organizing this meeting that's much more organized and accessible for the residents, and not when Mexico's playing in the World Cup. So thank you for that, staff. I have a lot of concerns with this project. I just feel it's not reflective of the community. It's very dense. I'm concerned of the impacts to traffic, especially during peak hours and when the train is going by. This is a very walkable community. A lot of our residents walk, so I'm concerned of pedestrian safety, especially with crossing, even when peak hours, the impacts to the community garden. It's going to be a gated community that's really closing off a significant part of the community, and I felt that what makes Colonia so beautiful and has its identity is that we as a community, we're all together, we're not separated by gates. And the pricing of it, and only 10% of affordability, there's a lot of concerns there. So what I would like to propose is perhaps maybe an alternative that the city can consider. If there are funds within the city's budget, particularly for the in-lieu fees, the city can use the in-lieu fees to purchase this property. And once you purchase a property, you can have community workshops, work with neighborhood councils, residents to collect feedback on what is the community's vision for this property. Is it recreation centers, more parks, perhaps commercial buildings for entrepreneurship opportunities? If there is a vision for residential, perhaps we can look into making it more affordable or just have a pure affordable housing project. If it is purchased with in-lieu fees, perhaps the city can consider donating it to a land trust, and a many mansions or a people self-help housing or a Cabrillo can make a pure affordable housing project, and you can work with HUD and your Section 8 applicants, so that way there can be a system for residents that are in dire need of housing can get into that, and maybe perhaps a farm worker element as well for farm worker housing as well. I think those are some options the city can consider, especially with the in-lieu fees. Hopefully there's some money in there, and I think just having feedback from the community during that process will be critical. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel. Daniel Carrillo? Daniel?
Hi, my name is Daniel Carrillo. I was born here in Colonia, and I represent the Camino del Sol Community Garden, one of the members there. So we have 74 families there in the garden itself, and they're very concerned about the development. They are against it because of the removal of the sections that you want to remove, especially when there are improvements coming in. I know, like the trees. We have hawks there that have nests there. Have you guys even inspected that to see for wildlife that will affect the area? They protect our garden as we see it there. They feed out of there. That's also our butterflies that come from, they nest there too. So with removal of that will damage our area as a garden, as for the bees, butterflies, birds, and everything else there. The other thing too, looking at the development, we'll be building homes next to the wall that might be 15 feet, 20 feet away, but that's part of our improvement section that we're doing for future gardeners to plot there. And with your homes there, that'll cover up the sunlight and the growth of the plantation that'll be there. Now, here again, city got money, coming from Caltrans to do an improvement of all these parks, and especially the community garden. Now, you're gonna come and destroy that? What does Caltrans get to say? That they're giving us the money to do improvement, that it's not coming from the city, it's coming from Caltrans, and here you're going to take one plot in the back to improve a walkway, Then you're gonna do the fire access that you need to be bigger, especially the roadway for that Camino del Sol that you call alley, which is fine, but we also have improvements already involved to do that section too. So have you guys even looked into that yourselves? So I have talked to the fire department also. They also had told me that they don't have to open up the road. You guys can do the turnaround inside the property and make the other access on Colonia Road like the way the packing house had it. They had an entrance and they had an exit. So you can use that road. I know Aaron Starr said, oh, open up Camino del Sol because it'll get a better view for us there. No.
30 seconds, Senator.
You're destroying our garden. So I am against it, the other gardeners are against it, and I hope everybody from the Colonias feels the same way. Thank you.
Citlali Ayala.
Buenas tardes, vecinos. Yo soy Citlali Ayala. I am the president-elect for East Secondary, but I am speaking for myself and my family only tonight, representing only themselves. I'd like to publicly voice my opinion and tell you that I do not believe with the development because it does not directly benefit my children or their future. I do want to take this opportunity and say and point out and bring light to the devastation that happened at Ramona Elementary School. The children were displaced because either city officials or our own school education department did not pay attention to the mold that was created, and it caused so much damage that the children are not allowed to come back to their school. My children have had asthma symptoms since they were there. They've been there since pre-garden. And I want to take this opportunity to say that if democracy does not work for us today, and if our voices are not heard, if our position is not taken into account and your development does go through, at least I would like to propose that part of that $5 million grant that goes to the school can come about and create a brand new school for our children. Ramona Elementary children are not allowed to come back into school, faculty are not allowed to return, and neither are the teachers, the staff. I've heard that they're not being let go, but that means that every single child who is going to first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, depending on their grade, have to go all the way down to Lemon. As much as we know, that is really, really far for our families. So again, if democracy does not work for us and our voices are not heard, please allow some of that money to go to create a brand new school that is up to code, has no water damage, and hopefully this opportunity allows us to be stronger together. I love to see that our community is here together and we're voicing more or less the same opinion that we have, and hopefully democracy works. Please also note that your project will also provide so much traffic and congestion that not even my street on Hayes is going to be free from any damage. My neighbor reminded me that we have been trying endlessly for years to allow for a stop sign, a four-way stop sign on Hayes and First Street, where we have so many crashes going on because people do not adhere to the 25 speed limit rule. Parked cars have been hit by either drunk drivers or people who are speeding down the streets. So even if our own little voices as residents, as property owners, as my neighbor and I are, cannot be heard, we're simply asking for a stop sign for the betterment of everybody who lives there. Please remember that when that does not happen, children like Alexander a couple of years ago were hit and run and killed as he was walking to his school on the road to Cesar Chavez School. He was crossing the street, he was on the street he was on an official crosswalk with his caretaker, and he was killed on impact. My own child's teacher and the then principal held that child in their arms as he died. The development is going to cause traffic and congestion that can lead to deaths. So again, I repeat, if democracy does not work for us today, please allow for that $5 million to go to the creation of a brand new school that is up to code, safe for our children, because that is all we need. We are parents who are advocating here for the safety and the betterment of our children's future. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Savali. One point on the school fees. The city, for development projects, provides forms to the school district confirming the square footage size. The developers pay two different school districts, an elementary district and a high school district, relative to their project site. We don't control how those projects, how those funds are spent or what the rates are. That would be a good question for the school board of any use of those fees. And the total approximation from the developer of $5 million is development impact fees related to city infrastructure. So he's going to pay additional fees, or did that include the school fees in that $5 million? It was a part of it. So a piece of that $5 million would go to the schools, and how they program it, I would suggest is a good conversation with your school board. Okay, Lexi, our last speaker with a speaker card. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sure you guys have heard time and time again from everybody here that nobody's in agreement with this project. My question to you is, you guys made this meeting for our input, for community input, but how many times do you guys have to hear no before you take it into consideration? Everyone here has said no. Everyone here does not agree with this project. You guys are asking for our input, but when it goes back to city council, what is this input going to do? If the consensus is no, does that mean the project is a no? Another thing I want to point out is you guys yourself said that the sidewalks in the streets were not ADA compatible, which is a legal requirement. So instead of you guys, as the city, doing your job and making it ADA compliant, your guys' idea is to build more housing to make it more congested. You guys really think that's the answer? You guys have been told over and over again that this housing project is not going to be affordable for anybody in this community. You said 12 houses out of over 100 are going to be for low-income individuals? How does that in your head make sense? Your idea was 12, not even not even half, not even 20, 12, a dozen. So your idea is you guys could instead be building low-income housing to help over 120 families in the community that already exist. But instead you guys want to build 120 houses and give only 12 of them to maybe possible community members. Like literally you guys really need to get it together. None of you live in this damn community.
Thank you, Lexi. Just to clarify, the percentage of affordable housing is consistent with the city's inclusionary housing ordinance, which was adopted by City Council. Maritza Ortiz.
Hello, everybody. My name is Maritza, and I'm also a resident here of Oxnard. And I'm here to express my concern regarding the safety and well-being of my community. Firstly, I'd like to point out, which I think someone did earlier, but the reason that we're gathered here today and we're having a meeting is because there was a lemon factory on that land and it burned down, and now you guys want to come here and build fancy houses. That does not sit right with me, and it does not sit right with anybody else who's sitting here. The land in this city, the land in this country, and the land here on earth is for the people and for the benefit of the people. So over here, you guys are talking about all the benefits that this housing would bring to the community. How does building housing in an already overpopulated area benefit our community? There is no space here for you guys. We don't need more housing in Oxnard. We need spaces that will uplift our community. We need more art. We need more music. We need resources for our immigrant community. So I just want to say that another thing with the community garden, that already exists. People come to that beautiful place to find some peace of mind and you want to come destroy it? Think about the well-being of this city. How does taking away land and the earth and the place where people can ground help them? If this land is for sale or whatever, how about we rezone the area and build, a place where people can take workshops and learn how to garden, learn how to grow their own food. That will help the youth, that will help our future. This is not it. This is not the answer. We don't want you guys here. We don't want you to build here. Go build somewhere else.
Kathy G.
Good evening, my name is Kathy, and tonight I stumbled into this event as an accident. I was literally, just to let you know how traffic gets here in this area, just around this park. I live right across the park. It took me 30 minutes to find parking. Our parks are very crowded. We have baseball, we have soccer, we have basketball. Just take a walk outside and you'll see how full our neighborhoods are already. What do I see? Gentrification, Colonia. Born and raised here in this neighborhood, I have seen how congested our streets are. But guess what? They're filled with music, they're filled with noise, they're filled with hardworking people. And you're proposing affordable housing? 12? None of these people in this neighborhood can even afford a home. There's 5 families stuck in one home that have 10 parking cards outside. Do you think a new housing is gonna help improve this? No. Your people are gonna come, they're gonna buy these homes, they're gonna complain, the noise. But guess what? We're only gonna get louder and louder because they will not be welcome in a place where it's filled with people and community. And you know what's so funny? The whole community is coming up here to stand for its own community because this new housing is not for us. It's for people that can afford it. And guess what? None of us are going to be able to afford that because these homes are not made for us. They're made with people for money coming to gentrify our neighborhood. But that's not going to happen because people have been here for generations and generations. And our students, they see our standards. They're amazing. They're good. We don't need all these other rich kids coming in. These kids already, when they're applying to colleges, scholarships, they see the Colonia. Oh no, they don't have an opportunity to get out of this neighborhood. But guess what? That's going to change in the futures. So we don't need these new houses that supposedly are affordable. Because in reality, they're not affordable. So my question to you is, how is this affordable? How?
All right, I appreciate all the speakers, and we're going to run through some of the questions that were articulated based on both the developer and city staff. We'll take a run at it. We have about 20 minutes left, so there should be enough time to get through some of these quick answers. We're not going to give comprehensive answers. I'm not pretending that, but some of the more succinct questions we'll try to touch on for you. And Joe or Jamie, jump in if I missed any. Talked a little bit about school fees, bird nesting, and the Caltrans grant. I'll let Jamie talk a little bit about the environmental review process and a little bit about our collaboration with Public Works, who are the ones executing the grant from Caltrans. Can you touch on that?
So the community garden expansion was it's part of a grant that the Public Works team applied for. And that grant went towards several improvements throughout the city at different parks. So I think one of the local investments was from this grant at the, oh goodness, I'm going to blank on the park, I'm so sorry. But there were several parks that received part of this grant. So this community garden expansion, part of that was dedicated to the expansion, and there are the additional plots. This is running simultaneous to the project. So yes, it's under construction, so the Public Works Department didn't anticipate this project coming in. So that happened before this project even was proposed. There are environmental studies that are going to be conducted for the trees. There are questions about the eucalyptus trees. There are 2 mature eucalyptus trees on site of the community garden, and part of the environmental analysis is a biology section, which will analyze the trees and if there are nesting birds in there, and also if it's a habitat for monarchs. So that is part of the environmental review. And we have a consultant who has biologists who will conduct studies and write up their findings within that environmental document. And the Caltrans grant was for these improvements, but that's not to say that the city, the Public Works team, can't alter the land still. So part of the project is to remove what would be the future mulch area and 1 garden plot for the bike multi-use path. So the city has that ability to still propose changes even with a grant in place.
Thank you, Jamie. There was a question about an Oxnard Boulevard entrance and a bridge, or there may have been. And there may have been another question about a bridge. I've been with the city since 2000. And I heard inklings about potential for Camino del Sol to extend over. I wasn't really in the know at that point early in my career, but it was determined by city council and other staff that there's just no feasibility for that. For example, the Rice flyover, the Rice 5th flyover, it's again crossing a railroad track and a 4-lane road. Oxnard Boulevard's a bit larger, and I'm assuming it wouldn't cross Oxnard Boulevard, it would flare and meet Oxnard Boulevard. But that Rice 101 project is in the ballpark of $120 to $150 million. And fortunately, that's a lot of federal funding, state funding, and local BCTC and other funding sources. So, I mean, that's the biggest answer. The railroad tracks are just one of the big impediments. We cannot negotiate with the railroads. They have a lot of legal rights, and to go over is just extraordinarily expensive. Let me turn it over to the developer to follow up on any other questions he received. And I'll give Joe and Jamie a turn, any questions they jotted down, and then we'll open it up for any other ad hoc questions in just a moment. So I'll turn it over to Carl.
We did look at doing an affordable housing project, a tax credit project, and it didn't seem that it would qualify and be approved by the state. The Housing Authority has a different source of fundings that private developers don't have. There was a suggestion that an amalgamation of fundings be put together. Typically, that's how all affordable housing projects are done. It would be possible, but more than likely not probable. The kind of density of an affordable housing project would be at least 150 units, or closely to 250 units if an apartment were built on the site. We can actually go through this. We can get together in workshops later when the environmental review comes back before you. We can go through what are the density options that could be built on the site. And we looked at this and decided 120, 121 units was the smallest density that makes sense. For us as builders, yes, we are builders. We are here for our profit. I never said that we weren't, but we do build market and affordable. Somebody did a very good job on my background. They missed all the very low income 100% affordable projects I had participated in. They talked about the wealthier projects in wealthier parts of Los Angeles. Yes, I have participated in those. But the way we look at this is a combination market and low income housing project. that had a reasonable density, not an excessive density, not 250 units. So I hope that opens up a discussion we can have. I can talk to any of you privately who want to know more about why we chose this, why are we building this type of plan. So do you have some of the other questions? Jeff, do you have some of the other questions that were highlighted? Okay. So I'll turn it back to the city at this point.
Thank you, Carl. I'll turn it back over to Jamie to talk about a question related to, I forgot who asked it. How is this feedback used? And again, I mentioned early in the meeting, there's going to be several other community opportunities to meet on this project. You'll have the ability to comment on the environmental document when it comes out. There'll be a planning commission meeting. That's another big opportunity to come out. But we will prepare a staff report after the environmental document is released and comments are made. The city staff will write conditions that'll cover a plethora of things that are conditions on this project. And then we'll take a resolution with all those conditions and a staff report to the planning commission. And that's key because we will provide a summary of community feedback, and I'll let Jimmy touch on that in a little more detail.
That's correct. So while the community feedback is no, all of that still needs to be presented to our hearing bodies. That includes planning commission, that includes city council. So all of the feedback will be included in that staff report that Jeff mentioned to our public hearing bodies. So the process still continues on, and the project doesn't stop because the majority of the people here have said no. We take that and then we present it to your decision makers. Your decision makers are your planning commission making the recommendation based on community input and the slides I had earlier on staff's analysis of your existing uses, your proposed uses, and how everything lines up based on the trajectory of the city, based on general plan, zoning code, other ordinances in place. So that feedback is all incorporated in the staff report. So if anyone signs up as an interested party, you will then be notified, and a link to the planning commission report and future city council would then be sent to you. So you can see in every staff report that there's a section about community workshop and the input provided on these projects. Then that's when planning commission can make that recommendation to either modify the project, approve the project, or even deny the project. So those recommendations are then to your council. Your city council is the ultimate decision maker. The city council will decide if this project is going to move forward. There is a general plan amendment, which means that's kind of a big deal. So right now, the land use is industrial. So if someone wanted to come in and build industrial, they could, and it would just be at like a planning commission level. It won't go to city council. So the general plan amendment and the zone change are that is the tool, that is the mechanism that is pushing this to city council. And city council will ultimately, as I said, make the decision on all of the feedback, all of the meetings, everyone's comments. Summarized. I don't have, everyone's verbatim, but for the most part, we are going to incorporate that in. So that is the next steps for this project, and it doesn't end here.
Okay, we have a few minutes. Again, we can't answer all your questions. The intent here is to hear your feedback. You have been heard loud and clear. It wasn't most of you, it was all of you that had very strong opinions against the project. We're not here to filter or spin that one way or the other. We will report that back ultimately through the planning commission. Again, this is private property, not funded by the city, so there's some limitations with some of the questions on what we could or couldn't do. But we're not going to filter your feedback. We're not going to filter your comments. Absolutely, all of it will be summarized and presented to the planning commission. May Ma'am, you have a question?
Maybe just a suggestion, instead of summarizing, I would say the best thing is to have the planning commission and the city council look at what's been taped, so they can see it directly.
Let them see us.
Great suggestion is to recommend they review the video. That's always an option. And again, the planning commission hearing is a public hearing. I'm not saying you all have to repeat everything, but you're going to have another opportunity to speak to the decision makers. And again, the council meeting is a public hearing. You will have that opportunity as well. So your voices have been heard and will continue to be heard.
What will be done with this film? What is the purpose? What is the purpose of the film?
The gentleman recording is not city staff. This is a private individual who wanted to film, so he will do with the video.
What's the purpose of the film? And can we have a copy?
He will post it on a website. He did the community garden workshop recently and posted it on a YouTube, and his YouTube site will be available.
Dan Pinedo, if you can talk to him afterwards if you want some more information. Yes, sir, with your hand up.
All of your map.
Oh, sorry, there was somebody behind you with their hand up. I'll come back to you, sir.
That's all right, I'll speak kind of loudly because my throat's done. I had a quick question, maybe you guys can answer this. I had heard that the water supply for Colonia is coming in from the west side of the Pleasant Valley direction, and then there's been consistent issues with the infrastructure around the water supply for Colonia. Is there any impact in research that's done on whether the existing water supply can support this development?
Thank you for the question. The city asked us to provide a water demand analysis, and they reviewed and approved it based on their ability to provide water.
Something's happening with the translation.
I'm sorry.
Repeat the question.
The question started off with the source of the water supply coming in from Pleasant Valley and the city, whether the city's capability to provide water is there. They're really finished with, because our project, what's our impact of the project on the water supply? I think that, does that justify it?
Yeah, specifically I heard, and I don't know that this, I haven't validated this myself, but that the water pipes are about 80 years into a 60-year lifespan, and there's a lot of issues with leaks and stuff associated with that particular infrastructure. So if I know that wouldn't be a part of your research, you'd be looking at usage for your community, but on the city side, is there any plan for investigation for whether the infrastructure gets
So I'll turn that over to Jeff, but the city did review it. They do have the ability to provide the amount of water this project would demand. In terms of the age of the infrastructure, Jeff can talk to that.
Well, Jeff can answer a little bit of that, and our public works colleagues can answer the rest. As far as total water supply for the city, the 2025 Urban Water Master Plan was taken to council, and I had it in an email response back to Larry Stein, and I just don't remember the date of that council meeting where that was brought forth. But there's not a problem with the city water capacity and supply in total, even for our growth projecting out to, I think it was to 2045. If you're talking about our transmission lines coming from Callegas or other major water sources, I've never heard that there's a problem with those lines. That would be catastrophic. But as far as the infrastructure within the neighborhoods, I know there was, and I'll check with our Public Works Department, but there was a big cast iron pipe replacement project in a portion of Colonia. I don't know the scope of it. Again, that's with our Public Works Department, our capital improvement program. So there should not be any pipes anywhere in the city that are not functioning. Now, age of infrastructure, again, through resources City Council has, we've been pumping money into our infrastructure through our capital improvement program managed by our Public Works colleagues. And I'm hesitant to mention anything about, where that money came from because it's election season. But there is, I can find out if there's any problems with the localized infrastructure in terms of what is next on the CIP list to improve. They're very aggressive at updating any infrastructure, especially for portable water supplies. You can imagine that's insanely regulated, and there's a lot of people to answer to through the state water board and the Division of Drinking Water. You have to keep your water supply safe and functional. So if it's an over a lifespan of 80 years versus 60 years, I've not heard that. Again, we're a different department than Public Works, but we work with them almost all day, every day, collaborating on projects. I can leave you my card, and you can shoot me an email, and I can get you a very specific answer. Sir, in the red shirt, you started a question. I'll come back to you, sir.
Looking at your map, and I noticed you only answered.
For translation purposes, would you be able to state your, or I can come to you in the middle. I can come to you, Joe, this is getting interference.
It's regarding the train, you answered that. Have you guys worked on any other options regarding the traffic? I know you provided one, you always said the exit will be out to here, maybe the entrance to Colonia Road and the exit out to the quote-unquote alley. Anything else, anything you can put, we got things, like I said, right against you.
I'll let Carl take a shot at it. Can you remind me your first name, sir?
Tony.
Tony, okay.
We originally submitted a internal loop, just like Sunkist had, without any access to Camino. And city traffic engineers and city engineering department said no, they want one access, and that opened up the discussion on Camino. So it's the consequences of that.
That's how the city is, yeah. All right, thank you.
I'm going to follow up with that. And the access to this property has historically been on Colonia Road, so the ingress, egress from the property is staying the same as it's always been. And not to say that it's the best, but the main road and arterial to this property is Colonia. Question?
Yeah, off of that gentleman's question, 120 units, easy 5 fixture units per unit, you're looking at 600 gallons a minute sewage discharge. Is your existing sewage infrastructure going to take that? And is your treatment plant good with 600 gallons a minute times an hour times 24, however 0.6 MGBs you're going to put into your plant?
I'll try to briefly summarize your question for interpretation. The question was with some numbers I didn't remember, but some specific calculations on the fly. Is the sewer plant capacity adequate?
No, not your plant, your local collection system.
The trunk lines.
laterals, yeah.
The trunk lines.
120 units. These are, you said 3 and 4 bedrooms, so they're going to have at least 3 sinks, 2 toilets, and a washing machine, they said. So even if you go at 5 fixture units, over 120 units, you're looking at 600 gallons a minute, plus or minus. On average, that will be higher at peak times or lower at other times. They have to build a lift station for that. It's gravity into the existing system, or...
Let me try to summarize what you said so far for interpretation. Oh, you got it, thank you. So I can pretend I'm a licensed engineer, but I don't practice with Public Works. So essentially for development projects of this size, and even modest sizes, we have them submit as a preliminary sewer study. That looks at the network surrounding this project. Clearly, everything on site is going to be up to codes. I do not understand at this point in time that there's proposed to be a lift station. It's going to be all gravity flow. That's my understanding at this point. They'll submit a preliminary sewer study, and we'll work with our Public Works colleagues who maintain a sewer model of the whole city. They'll check. We've had projects like Del Sol High School where they had to make improvements down on La Puerta quite some distance away because they impacted it and they had to make those improvements.
That's the developer's expense or
The general,
city expense?
yeah, so the general concept is the direct impacts as a result of this project the developer will fix. If he impacts the sewer line a half mile away, he will upgrade that, and we've had Lockwood and many other projects that had to do that based on the sewer study. So we will definitely check that. Part of the reason they pay these developer impact fees as well is that they have to mitigate their specific impacts. But there's cumulative impacts across the whole city over development and development and development to build that plant, to expand that plant. So a part of the development impact fees is to accumulate monies in a strictly guarded fund that's reported onto the state every year, and that money is used for larger capital projects that one project alone can't provide the funding for because there is a cumulative effect. So I hope that answers your question.
It sort of does. What the takeaway is, the developer's going to pay for any improvements to the city, to the city's municipal wastewater collection system.
They will pay, it's worse than that, they pay for any of their direct impacts, including any lateral and other improvements that could be downstream. But they also have to pay impact fees for the impacts to the network all the way to the plant, and it's a proportionate fee. They don't have to update the trunk line
I
all
don't
the way
think
down the
that
road.
the 8-inch that's leaving that property right there is going to handle 121 units.
There's probably more than one 8-inch, and you'd be amazed how much an 8-inch can handle. But we will, so these are the higher level project designs. You sound like you know a lot about public plumbing systems. But, so we will have, these are preliminary designs. We'll have a sewer study, and that may be a part of the environmental review that's going on. I haven't been in the weeds. But ultimately, they'll submit, if a project is approved, they will submit detailed public improvement plans and the building construction plans, and we will review it in finite detail. So that's yet to come after a project is approved. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So we're about out of time. Is there any other quick questions we can try to serve?
I'd like to hear what the developer is, besides...
I'll repeat his question.
Besides the 2 yellow strips of the parking area cutout, what other improvements
I'll repeat the question.
The developer plan to add to the community?
So if I'm not repeating it correctly, but the question started with, aside from these 2 yellow strips, is that your question? Aside from those 2 yellow strips, what other improvements are you making for the community is the question. Is that fair?
Yes.
The 2 strips I'm pointing at, Carl, are the sidewalk, are the Camino del Sol widening for parking spaces on this exhibit here. So he's asking about, aside from these 2 strips, is there other improvements?
Thank you for the question. City engineering will give us a request for improvements, intersections, crosswalks, and we will comply with that as part of the project commitment. Colonia Road itself will rebuild the street, generally at least half width of the street, maybe more. We'll redo this curb gutter sidewalk along Colonia. Street trees right now, we'll make it all proper width. We'll create the parkway with street trees. We're going to build the bike path here along the westerly edge. And then all the fees that we're committing to the various agencies in the city that they spend. We can't dictate how they spend that, but you can. The community can go to council and require that all the money we're putting into the park and rec funds be dedicated to Colonia, to the programs here. So there's a range of things that the project creates financial benefits and physical benefits. The project isn't by itself benefiting the community. The financial commitments and the improvements to the infrastructure that we will build are benefits. And typically that's what cities require.
I have one more question, if I could.
Okay, Sylvia, we're coming back to you, and it's 8 o'clock, we gotta wrap it up, but Sylvia had one more quick question, I'll try to repeat it for everybody.
I'm just curious on the properties whose yard faces the adjacently, right there. Are all of the property lines going to stay as they are? They're going to remain untouched?
The question was, are these properties that I'm pointing at, and I know that the interpreter can't interpret that too well, but the adjoining homes across from this development, will their property lines remain the same? The answer is yes. When a development comes in, if there's deficiencies in the width of a roadway that adjoin their property, they have to basically eat it into their property. They don't get to go into other people's property, especially on developed sites.
That was a conversation that we were hearing. So we have properties along that line, so that's why we want to clarify that.
Yeah, but this circulation is a private street, so they have to manage it all on their side. If Colonia Road needed to be widened, I think Carl indicated that it did, they have to widen it on their side.
And all of that property is on a lifted foundation. Is that foundation going to be removed? It's high.
The site for the development, yeah, it'll be completely graded to quite some depth. And again, as part of the environmental process, there will be cultural monitoring for archaeological and Native American, there's quite a robust process for that. But yeah, they have to scrape the site, dig down, prepare actual foundations. That's a long ways from now. Again, we still have to get through the environmental review, comment period, planning commission, and then the city council meeting. Carl?
I just want to qualify, Colonial Road will be improved at the direction that the city requires as our conditions of approval. We know we're doing street resurfacing, curb and gutter. In terms of widening, I didn't mean to say that. But if it's required, the city engineer comes back with that, then we have to address that.
And for the record, I did not commit Carl to widen that road unless it's required for engineering purposes. So, thank you again, everybody, for coming out. It's 8 o'clock. We're going to start wrapping up. Staff will be down here for a few minutes if you'd like to get our cards or have any other quick questions. Don't forget about Tony Ochoa. He's been very quiet all night and knows this neighborhood very well and can answer any questions related to neighborhood quality of life that Code Compliance Department handles. Thank you so much for your feedback and for your time, and we appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.